Minister, this is probably is the only chance I'm going to get to speak to it. I'll speak to Section 2B because of the process, and we can all throw blame back and forth about messing on the process, but Minister, you've been around long enough to know exactly what's going on here in terms of stifling debate on this, in terms of the guillotine, the lack of a technical appendix, and so forth. And Minister, you're a student of history, you're a student of political ideology. It was you that mentioned fascism several times earlier on in the chamber. And, you know, I'm not saying we're anywhere near that, but this kind of stifling leads that way. And, I mean, you're a student of these things. You know that. But anyway, you know exactly what's going on. Minister, I don't have a problem with the target of 300 million. I don't have a problem with the target of 300 million. I appreciate that the budget has to be balanced. It isn't necessary under Troika because other savings have already got that. We're coming in well within the 300 million, but I think it probably should come out nonetheless. But this section and the amendments I have, which were ruled out of order, go to the heart of my problem with this legislation, which is it targets public sector pay without targeting the waste. There's huge waste. I spoke at the Garda Sergeants and Inspectors Conference and put it to them that their wages would have to fall if and when waste could be taken out first, and if some plan could be put in place for people who this legislation is going to push into financial distress. We know that some people are going to be pushed into arrears on their mortgages because of this. We know some people are going to be pushed into poverty because of this. But we have no technical appendix. We have no poverty impact assessment. So we don't know the numbers. And this type of legislation, which is going to be hugely impactful on people, because this inevitably is going to apply to some workers in Ireland who won't be covered by Haddington Road. That's my problem with it, is that it goes after wages when there's a lot of waste to be taken. And ultimately, public sector wages do have to come in line with private sector wages. If we are to have a fair and equitable society, workers should be paid the same amount. I take no relish in the fact that there's nothing to make my mind up, Minister, if you listen to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, no. What I'm saying is, Minister, you can snip and be disingenuous and willfully misunderstand if you like. The message is quite simple, and public servants understand it, which is, if ultimately public sector wages have to fall, well, okay, but only within the context of protections for those who get pushed into poverty, for those who get pushed into arrears. But it is unreasonable, in my opinion, to ask people to take cuts to wage when they're take cuts to their pay when there is so much waste that could be gone after first. And my second point, I'd just like to pick up this thing you keep mentioning, which is that 87% of the public sector earn below 65,000 and won't be hit. They will be hit. Many of them will be hit. The GRA has calculated that a guard on €35,000, because of the changes to premium payments, will take a several thousand euro hit in this legislation. In this legislation. Some people are going to be hit. I'll finish on this, Ken Corn. I appreciate your indulgence. Under this, and secondly, I've read the bill in great detail, Minister. And secondly, can you explain to us why pensioners would be hit at 32,500? I understand it's half. I understand that the pension is half of the final wage. But if we're looking at the reasonable wage or income at which people should take a hit, there's two completely separate rules. One, if you're working at 65,000, and one, if you have worked and you're a pensioner, is 32,500. So that's all I'd say. I believe that this is utterly flawed in not tackling waste before having to go near wage. Thank you, Karen.
Deputy Donnelly talked about waste, and you know, in all honesty, I mean, it's a cop-out. This whole notion is we won't have to cut anybody's wages. I agree with the ask. I agree with reducing the wage bill, but we'll start by waste. You know, there's always something nebulous over there. So don't have to do anything hard because there's waste. There's waste to be found. And it's a lovely. Well, any suggestion.
Excuse me. This is not a shouting match.
Any suggestion that Deputy Donnelly or any other deputy wants to bring forward in relation to identification of waste, you'll have a ready ear in this minister and this department. I've set up a reform and delivery office. We've set out a very radical waste elimination process to amalgamate, to eliminate waste, to have shared services. We're driving that agenda. I'd be very happy to give you chapter and verse in relation to it. But this whole notion that we can't do anything else until we eliminate waste. So we can do that's a nice, convenient little cop-out. And this other notion, Ceann Comhairle, of pushing people into poverty because we take a reasonable contribution from people over 65,000 is ludicrous. It is it's an ask. It's an ask. It's an ask for people. It's an ask for people.
Donnelly, would you please respect?
It's an ask for people.
Thanks.
It's an ask for people. It's an ask for
you
people.
to try anyway. Just try anyway.
Deputy
Just try.
Collins.
I suggest you leave the chamber if you find it too difficult.
It's a terrible strain. No. I know Deputy Donnelly would prefer. He's probably preparing his Sunday Independent article, and it's very difficult for him to listen to another discordant voice because he likes, from his perch of authority.
He seems incapable of listening.
Oh, that's all right. You see,
That person's on their feet.
I wanted to simply say this in conclusion, Ceann Comhairle. I would have rather had more time to debate these issues and go through every section, particularly the issues in relation to the pensions that I haven't got an opportunity. But we will, over time, have an opportunity to do all that.
Thank you. As it's now 10 o'clock, I'm required to put the following question in accordance with an order of the Dáil of this day. That, in respect of each of the sections undisposed of, the section is hereby agreed to in committee. The title is hereby agreed to in committee. The bill is accordingly reported to the House without amendment. Fourth stage is hereby completed, and the bill is hereby passed. Na teachtaí atá a thaobh na tairceanna abadís tá. Na teachtaí atá na cruinne abadís ní. Sílim ghuill an ceisrite. Fótáil.